The Iowa State volleyball team swept TCU before falling to a dominant Baylor Bears team. We'll talk about what the future holds for this Cyclone volleyball team. The Iowa State women's basketball team defeated Missouri Western in an exhibition, and their season starts on Thursday. The Iowa State men's basketball team was in action tonight against Mississippi Valley State. We'll have all the updates for you about this season. Cyclone InCyders starts now. Welcome to Cyclone InCyders. I'm your host, Ben Olson, joined at the desk with Jared Bravard and John Miller. The football team had it off this week, guys, but the Iowa State volleyball team had a couple of exciting Big 12 games. We're going to jump right into it. They went on the road to Fort Worth and swept a weak TCU team 3-0, just like we were hoping they would. They held TCU to a season-low .108 hitting, so really great defense in this one for the Cyclones. However, in their next match, they would play the dynasty of the Baylor Bears and be swept 3-0 themselves in what was really their worst defensive performance of the year. So a lot to break down out of these two games, guys. 1-1 for the week. John, why don't you start? What were your thoughts on their performance?
You know, as always, you kind of take the Baylor game with a grain of salt, you know, them being top-ranked and everything, but I just think that they got to do a better job on the defensive end, you know, blocking opponents and limiting attacks, because volleyball is kind of different in the sense that, you know, you get your offense based on how well you can, you know, stop the other team's attacks. So, I mean, I just think Iowa State needs to do a better job of that going forward, you know, especially if they're going to sneak their way into the tournament like we, you know, hope they do. So,
Jared, what did you think?
I thought the TCU game was good, just like how they took care of business here in Ames when TCU came to town. Handled that first set well. The other two sets were a little closer than they probably should have been, but kept it together and had the sweep there. And like John said, that Baylor game, can't look too much into it because Baylor's such a top-class opponent. But you would like them to see them shut down a team like Baylor, like they did when they were in Ames. You know, Presley, one of the high hitters on Baylor, they shut her down here in Ames, but she hit very well in that game. I think above 400. So, you know, they're playing a top-ranked team, and you'd like to see them a little bit closer. That second set was pretty close, but other than that, Baylor kind of had their way with them.
Right, yeah, that set you mentioned, it was 29-27. Baylor ended up stealing that second set in the match against Iowa State. Iowa State, again, unable to finish. The thing that concerns me about these two matches, guys, is the lack of consistency that we've been talking about. I mean, how do you go from having one of your best defensive performances of the year to one of your worst? Mm-hmm. Granted, Baylor is a potent offense to go against, but, I mean, you just like to see, like, you'd think they had some momentum after that TCU game. You want to see this young team to be able to carry that into their next match. Some notable stats were Herrera had 8 kills and 9 blocks, more blocks than kills in that TCU game, and Izzy Enna led the team with 13 digs. And then to reverse that, Eleanor Holthouse had 16 kills in the Baylor game, but I mean, I don't think anyone had more than 5 blocks in that one for the Cyclones. So just kind of that lack of consistency as we get into the later part of the season is something that might concern me about this team going forward. But we look at the future for this volleyball team, right? So last year, the Iowa State Cyclones won the volleyball NIT, essentially. Really a great postseason performance, and they were able to overcome some of that disappointment from not making the NCAA tournament. So right now, Iowa State is sitting at 14-8 and 5-5 in Big 12 conference play. What do you guys think this team needs to do to make the NCAA tournament, and will they get there?
I guess I'll take it first. So I was looking at their schedule coming up, and they got games against Kansas State and West Virginia, which they should sweep them. But then they got 2 tough ones against Texas Tech and Oklahoma, which are so Oklahoma's ranked higher than them in the RPI. Texas Tech is lower. So, but they lost to Texas Tech 3-1 earlier in the year. So they definitely need to win at least one of them to get into the tournament. And if they win both, they will get in for sure. So, you know, they definitely at least need to win one of them. But they need to make sure in these, you know, upcoming 2 matches that they don't let them get away from them and by looking ahead, so.
Yeah, what about you, Jared?
Yeah, kind of echoing what John said here. They got 6 conference games left. I think they're going to need to win at least 4, if not 5. So the West Virginia K-State should be able to get those. That OU Tech, they're going to need one of those games, or both badly, because they also have Texas to finish the season.
Yep.
And I think looking forward to postseason play, you kind of, what's the recency effect in a way? Like the committee's going to be looking at, how you finish the season. And if you come in hot, you might be a little bit like higher in the minds of the selection. So you just gotta have a good finish and show a little more consistency here through the final stretch.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you make there. That if they beat Oklahoma and Texas Tech, that they it shows that they're a better team than they were earlier in the year. So that would be really something going for them heading into the tournament.
Yeah, I have that Oklahoma game at home circled on the schedule because they dropped that one in Norman to the Sooners. So I think that's a team they need to be able to beat at home. 3 home games left, 3 road games to go. And the Texas one in the final game of the year could be very crucial into deciding, depending on what their record is going into that match, could be crucial into deciding if they make that tournament or not. And I mean, I think we're going to all be in consensus about this one, but would you rather this team, have a deep run in the NIT again or make it to the NCAA tournament?
NCAA tournament for
Right.
sure. I think just the atmosphere is completely different when going to the NCAA tournament, and I think the excitement from the fans is certainly you hear NCAA tournament and it's a lot more than NIT or whatever the volleyball whatever it's called. But yeah, I just think NCAA is there's more cloud around it, I guess.
I think if this team with the youth that they have can make the NCAA tournament this year, that even if it's as a 10 seed or, I think it'll be in the lower end, but I think that is just really great sign for the future.
Yeah, so NCAA, you always want to make the big tournament. And like you mentioned with the youth, it'll be good for those players to come in and get some of that experience for heading into next year when they should be a little bit higher in the ranks and go make a little deeper run in the postseason play. But just even being there and playing that sort of competition late in the year will be good for them.
Right. So keep an eye on the Iowa State volleyball team as they start to head towards the postseason hunt and see if they can continue some solid play to finish out Big 12 Conference. And volleyball is not the only sport that is being played in Hilton Coliseum these days, guys. The basketball season is just starting. The men's season just started today. The women's season is going to start on Thursday. But the women's basketball team had an exhibition this last Wednesday against Missouri Western State, where they defeated them 87-54 at Hilton Coliseum. It was a really great experience for this women's team. A lot of girls got off the bench, got to get out there and get their first minutes in Hilton Coliseum. The Cyclones had 5 players in double-figure scoring, and that was without their star center, Kristen Scott, who did not play, just trying to stay healthy in this one. Some notable stat lines: Ashley Jones had 19 points and 9 rebounds, and Jade Thurman had 16 points to add on to that. Maddie Wise at 13. And notably, the freshman, Maddie McGraw-Espen-Miller, had 15 points in her debut. She looked like a firecracker out there for this Iowa State offense. Did you guys get to catch any of the exhibition? What were your thoughts on their performance? And then what kind of expectations do you have for the women's team this year, Jared?
I liked Ashley Jones coming in filling for Kristen Scott, not being able to play. Had some of the back spasms earlier this year and wanting to keep her healthy, obviously, for the games coming up. So I thought overall, good performance for the first game of the year. Granted, it's an exhibition against Missouri Western, but I think it's important that you get out in those game-type experiences, get the feel for each other, and kind of gelling with kind of what was graduated last year, even only as 3 players gone, but just trying to fill in and figure out who they are as a team this year. So good start to the team.
Right, yeah, not D1 competition, but I can promise you that Coach Fennelly had the girls ready to play. He was actually drawing up a play while they were doing starting lineups of the exhibition game. Doesn't take any days off. John, what kind of expectations do you have for the women's team this year?
My expectations for the team this year is that, I still think they're an NCAA tournament caliber team, but they're certainly not on the, 3 seed level that they were last year, losing Carleton. And, in the exhibition, something that really struck my mind was that, the balance of the scoring load was there, and that's something that they're going to need to have this year, because I'm not sure if they're going to have a player that's going to be able to, fulfill that Carlton role, whether it's Jones or Wise, Scott, but it's going to be tough either way. But so, heading forward, they're definitely just going to need to have that scoring balance between everybody as they get into the, conference play and the tougher games. So. Right.
This Iowa State team was picked to finish 4th in the Big 12 this year. Of course, Baylor picked to win the Big 12 for the 9th consecutive time. Iowa State's behind Baylor, Texas, and West Virginia. But their season actually starts on Thursday when they will play Southern. So you look at the projections for this Iowa State team. We kind of talked about what we expected. Obviously, they lost a lot in a name that will someday be in the Hilton rafters in Bridget Carleton. Who do you think is going to pick up the slack on the offensive side of the ball for the Cyclones? And maybe who's someone who's a little bit of a dark horse in the early season but could be a big name come the end of the season, Jared?
For my dark horse, like I mentioned, Ashley Jones coming in the other night. She had 19 points, 9 rebounds.
She had a great freshman year, too.
Yeah, I say just going to keep up what she did last year and being able to have more of a role. And then so for Kristen Scott, too, both of them being able to play in that forward spot and kind of fill in and get to be more their own role this year instead of playing alongside Bridget. And I think it was well balanced last year. I think it's just going to be even more well balanced this year between those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you said about Jones there. I think she's going to, kind of be our leader, I guess you could say, even as a sophomore. She averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds last year, which is similar to what Carleton actually averaged as a freshman, but she's just going to need to take that next step in her game and become that scorer and down low post player that's going to need to give Iowa State a bucket when they need it. So I think she really just needs to step forward coming into this season. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think Ashley Jones will be a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could say the same thing about Maddie Wise for this Cyclone offense. For me, I think a little bit of a dark horse. You got to consider that they also lost the transfer Alexa Middleton, who is primarily the point guard this whole last season. Really did a fantastic job for the Cyclones. But now you look at the girls like Johnson and Jade Thurman, who are going to have to step in and take her place. Johnson's definitely more of a pass-first point guard, but Jade Thurman had some great drives in this exhibition game. She was not afraid to take it to the hole. I think she could be a scoring burst for this Iowa State team, possibly. We'll see how many minutes she gets, but she's my dark horse to look for on offense. She's bided her time on the bench. I'm sure she's learned a lot under some great point guards in her time here. And then, of course, I could also see Maddie McGraw-Espin-Miller picking up some minutes because she looked really good in this exhibition, you guys, finding different ways to score from range, but then also not being afraid to drive the ball. And we know Coach Fennelly loves scores. That's who he recruits. She's an Iowa girl, so I could see her quickly becoming a crowd favorite for this women's basketball team. We'll take a look now at the Iowa State women's basketball schedule for you. Looking at that, do you guys see a first loss on this schedule? And then we'll talk about what we have for NCAA tournament predictions.
I think that Drake game certainly looks interesting, but I don't think they're going to drop one until Alabama. That Alabama-Iowa gauntlet right there looks a little tough. But, yeah, I think their first 6 games there are definitely winnable for the team. So.
Right, yeah, the Big 12 SEC Challenge is that Alabama game. Yep. And then again, another tough one against Iowa the next game after. But yeah, Drake has been making a name for themselves in the Missouri Valley Conference. Jared, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing you guys are with that Drake game right away this year. It's going to be a good test for them early on. Drake's been progressing as a program these past couple of years. Should be a good game. I think they'll be able to squeak the game out of the Cyclones, and looking forward to that Alabama-Iowa back-to-back and maybe dropping one of those, but should be good contests.
Yeah, no, I think because of the youth of this team, I think we could see them maybe drop 1 or 2 of those 3 games we talked about, as they learn to get their team chemistry down. But I think heading into Big 12 play, Coach Fennelly will have them still at a very good record and where they need to be. Made the NCAA tournament last year, obviously a disappointing exit in the round of 32. Do you see this team getting back there, guys? Is it a back-to-back performance in the tournament for Iowa State?
I think so. Like John said earlier, I don't think it's going to be at that 3 spot like they were last year, but I do think this team is certainly talented enough and Fenley knows what he's doing. Obviously, he's been here for many years and knows how to bring teams together and get them to the tournament.
I agree. I think this team chemistry will start to build them. I think they can easily finish in that 4th place spot in the Big 12, John.
Yeah, I think that 4th place projection is just about where it needs to be for the team, especially if I would say preseason outlook, they're looking at an 8, 9, 10 seed in there somewhere. And even though, we talked about them losing Middleton and obviously Carleton, players like Espen Miller and Thurman just, coming in, I think they're going to be able to, shoulder a little bit more of that scoring load than some people may expect them to. So, I do think they will be able to be an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things to watch in this Iowa State women's basketball team this year. A lot of unknowns, but one thing's for sure is that Coach Fenley will have them ready to play week in and week out. And we encourage you to make it to as many games at Hilton as possible because this girls' team is always exciting. Speaking of excitement, the men's basketball team did kick off tonight against Mississippi Valley State. They defeated the Delta Devils 110-74 to start the season 1-0. Really a great start to see Iowa State jump out and get on top of a much weaker opponent. Michael Jacobson led all scorers for Iowa State with 20 points. Prentice Nixon came in next with 16. Looking at the minutes, Tyrese Halliburton led all the guys with 30. Prentice Nixon was second with those 27 minutes, so it looks like really good guard play out of Iowa State in this one. Guys, good start. Obviously, some tough and interesting matchups on Iowa State's schedule this year. A lot of unknowns with some transfers coming in and the loss of Shayok, as well as Wigginton, Taylor Horton Tucker. You lose those freshmen that we're known to. The freshmen that are coming in this year are not quite as proven. What are some of the expectations that you have, John?
I think it's going to be one of those years for the Big 12 where everybody beats up on everybody and home.
That's every year.
Yeah, but this year more than ever, I think home court advantage is going to be, massive for games. Iowa State's preseason projection for the Big 12 is 7th. I think they finish around 5th, 6th, 7th in there. But, it's certainly just going to be a brawl game in, game out in this conference this year. I mean, besides Baylor, I don't know if there's a single team in here that we're like, oh, they don't have a weakness. And so, it's just going to be interesting to see how the young Iowa State team progresses this year. If Halliburton takes that next step. Just a lot of unknowns. And that's why I'm a little skeptical about the team this year. But, they have the potential to, get back to the NCAA tournament, but it's just going to be, how many of those things they can, fix, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. I think Coach Prohm will hopefully work out some of the kinks. Yeah. Jared, what are your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I'd expect them to get back to the tournament this year. Maybe not being a 6 like last year, maybe a couple lower, but I think this team is talented enough to do it. And like I said, John, with the Big 12 beats up on each other a lot of the time, and so I think Iowa State will finish around mid-table there, around that 5-6 spot, and maybe make a run in the Big 12 tournament like we've seen, and help bump that NCAA tournament spot up a little bit. But I like to see how the new guys kind of gel with some of the older ones. We got Solomon Young coming back, even though he's around the team, wasn't able to play really last year, and Nixon coming in and Bolton, and so it'll be interesting to see how they mesh, and I think they'll get it figured out towards the middle end of the season. But
yeah, I like what you said about the Big 12 tournament. That's always where Iowa State has made their run, and this year more than ever, especially if it's the type of year that I described where they all beat up on each other and they don't have that run, then it puts them in a tough spot for the NCAA tournament. But kind of like we talked about with the volleyball team, they just need to make sure they're improving as the year goes on and show towards the end of the season that they're better than they were at the start. So
I want to talk about that a little bit. You mentioned Iowa State picked to finish 7th in the Big 12 in the preseason polls this year. To me, that's a little bit of disrespect, guys. I don't know how you feel. Teams like West Virginia is always good. I'm okay with them being above them. But Oklahoma State sliding in one spot above Iowa State, and of course Tech did lose a lot with Colvert. They only dropped to 3rd in the conference. Texas, I think, is high at 4. Do you guys think that they're a little disrespected with that 7th ranking?
I guess I think they're maybe 1 too low. You talked about Oklahoma State being higher than them. I think they're about 6th. You know, I just think there's going to be too many things this year that are kind of going to bring the team down. But, you know, I think there's definitely signs of potential for the future. So, yeah.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see, Jared.
Yeah, I say it was a little lower than I was expecting when I saw that projection. But I guess it's not about the start, it's about the finish. So just got to prove them wrong.
So Tyrese Halliburton obviously had a fantastic summer with the Olympics team. But, I mean, he's still a sophomore, guys, but he has that potential to become the leader of this team. You look at Michael Jacobson, the senior who's back. Solomon Young is a senior who finally gets to play again. I'm sure he's excited to be on the floor. Who do you think is going to emerge as one of the leaders of this team?
I mean, all you mentioned are good candidates for a leader.
Or what about a dark horse? Because there's a lot of, we kind of know the solids, I should say. Who are the unknowns on this team?
I'm looking at Prentice Nixon coming in as the transfer, as an upperclassman, running the point guard, kind of being like the solid rock here of the offense. And so, I mean, he was able to come in and be with the team some last year. Obviously didn't get to play, had to sit out his year for transferring, but I look at him coming in and just being a good leader, upperclassman, taking care of the ball, and getting to where it needs to be to make the team successful.
Yeah, that would be really good to see guard play out of him. For me, I think I was impressed with Razir Bolton, was leading the team in points tonight early. He had 9 points in about the first 10 minutes. I don't know too much about his play so far, but I think he could be a nice bounce off of Iowa State. And he kind of brings a different style of play, lesser known than the Big 12, so I think it'll take him some time to adjust to this style, this pace of play, I should say. But I think he could be a strong shooting contributor for Iowa State off the bench, John.
Yeah, Bolton, he was one of the first people that came to my mind about, you know, kind of having that blow-up year. But I think Terrence Lewis, this is finally going to be his year. You know, we've kind of been waiting on him the last 2 years. He's kind of been pushed to the back of the bench. You know, it seems like he would only come in and, you know, when we were blowing him out and, you know, barely got any minutes. Wasn't really Prohm's favorite guy per se, but I think this year he's finally going to get that shot going a little bit and be a nice scoring piece off the bench as Iowa State needs it to be. So,
one interesting note, speaking of dark horses, off the stat sheet tonight, Trey Jackson brought 11 points for Iowa State off the bench in 17 minutes, led the team with a plus or minus of 32, so we got some really good minutes out of him tonight. Also some good minutes out of Caleb Grill. I think he's one freshman who's really exciting, just because from a pure athleticism standpoint. The unknowns, we could talk about them forever with this team this year. I think it'll start to come together, but it's really exciting. And we have the Iowa State schedule here for you to look at on the men's side. First loss, guys, what are you looking at here for Iowa State?
They're actually, I think by the line, they're projected to lose against Oregon State, but I think they are going to pull that one out. You know, you obviously see the Michigan one there, and it, you know, kind of ESPN picks you up, but I think they're going to drop that one of those games to Northern Illinois or Southern Miss. I think they're going to get upset in one of those. So,
well, I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see it, but I think it is going to happen.
That Michigan game is, of course, the Battle for Atlantis tournament, where if they do defeat Michigan in that one, they go on to play either Alabama or North Carolina. So a lot of loaded teams in that tournament. I think the at Oregon State game could be a trick game for a team that doesn't quite have the chemistry down yet. You know, you go on the road, play a Pac-12 team, a little bit of different style. So I think if they can get through that one, I think they'll be 4-0 going into the Battle for Atlantis. But the competition's just too fierce there. They're going to drop one. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, so a couple of these games might be some trap games early on. I think they'll be able to squeak them out. Maybe that's just the optimist in me, thinking that they'll be 4-0 going into that Michigan game. But that Michigan game is definitely going to be tough. I know, you know, they lost a couple from last year, but still have enough coming back, and still another top tier program that made a deep run in the NCAA tournament last year. And even if they would get by Michigan, like you said, most likely North Carolina, you know, in the wake of that. So the Battle for Atlanta is going to be a tough tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely exciting basketball ahead for Iowa State, though. Fun matchup with number 12, Seton Hall. And that Thursday game, December 12th against Iowa, that one's important for the Battle for the Cy-Hawk trophy. Definitely circle those on your calendars. Some other news out of basketball as of yesterday was freshman Luke Anderson and Marcetus Leach are both going to enter the transfer portal from Iowa State. Didn't even suit up one game for Iowa State. Spent the summer with them. Not sure for the reasoning there. Maybe it wasn't what they was. Of course, Leach didn't think Iowa State was what they thought it was. Of course, Leach is coming off of that terrible leg injury. He had some recovery to do. But regardless, we wish those guys the best, and I'm sure Coach Prohm will help them land on their feet. That's all we have for some of the preseason stuff. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have the Cyclone InCyders Pick Em segment. Stay tuned. It's time for the always fun Cyclone InCyders Pick Em segment. So guys, last week was a great week for Jared and I. John unfortunately missed out on some of the easy picks. I had my first undefeated week of the year, going 3-0. Jared unfortunately had to pick Kansas, went 2-1. Still improving the record. 1 week after another, we're slowly kind of climbing back to 500, if you will. But we've got 4 games of Big 12 football to pick this week. We're going to end with the Iowa State game as they are returning to action. So let's jump right into it. Baylor is a 2-point favorite at TCU. Jared, you start. Who do you think is going to take this one? Baylor, undefeated, of course, and first in the Big 12.
Yeah, I've got Baylor. That's what the gut said. I know they slipped up a little bit last week against West Virginia, and this is on the road at TCU. I just don't see them dropping a game yet. They know that they got Oklahoma coming up, so I see that as a maybe game they lose. But give me Baylor -2 here.
John, who do you have in this one?
Go Horned Frogs. I'm excited about this game right here. I think this is the one Baylor's finally going to drop because, they're ranked 11th, I think, or they were in the college football playoff, the newest one that came out. And, TCU just lost by a touchdown to Oklahoma State last week, but Baylor has the game against Oklahoma next week. They're going to be looking forward to that one, I think, and kind of overlook TCU a little bit. So, I think this is the one they're going to lose.
I respect that pick. I do. Of course, TCU hasn't looked that great, just losing to Oklahoma State. So I'm going to go with the hot hand. I'm going to take the Baylor Bears, going to be undefeated headed into that matchup with Oklahoma. Next up, we've got a battle for the bottom of the Big 12, where we've got Texas Tech at West Virginia. Texas Tech is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to take Tech in this one. I think they've lost some close games. I think they'll be able to beat up on a injured West Virginia team. Jared, who do you have?
I have Texas Tech as well. West Virginia looking pretty good against Baylor on Thursday night last week. And it's in Morgantown, but I think Texas Tech's offense is just going to be too much. They'll win by more than 2.5.
Yeah, Texas Tech just, coming off a tough loss to Kansas. But obviously that Kansas team is much different than it was earlier in the season when, they were getting 30-point spreads put up against them. But, I do think Texas Tech is going to take this one against West Virginia. It's kind of one of them toss-up games, but I think Tech is going to get it done.
I agree. Texas Tech across the board. Next one, Kansas State, who's riding high, ranked 20th in the nation right now, traveling to Texas, where Texas is still a 7-point favorite. Kind of surprised me in this one, guys. Jared, who do you have?
I got K-State right here. When I saw this line immediately, I thought that's too many points. It's in Austin, but this Kansas State team is for real. They're showing us, and they're on a roll here. And Texas has looked a little lackluster recently, and so I think 7 is way too much.
John, what do you got?
Just to pick against Jared, I'm going with the Longhorns. 7 points, it might look like a lot, but I think this Texas team is just kind of, they're trying to figure out, what's going to get them to a top bowl game, or not necessarily top, but, better than a mid-tier bowl. So, I just think this week they're going to get it figured out against Kansas State and, show that they are that kind of team.
Yeah, this might be me refusing to see logic, but I'm going to go with the Longhorns as well. I really just want them to have the same record or be a better team than Iowa State when they come into Ames so that we can pull off that big win. But I also think Texas knows that this is a game that they can get one back at Oklahoma for that loss. So I think they'll come out ready to play. And last one, the toughest one for us to pick, being the Cyclone diehards that we are, Iowa State at Oklahoma. Highest line in the Big 12 this week. Oklahoma is a 14-point favorite at home. Jared, I'm going to let you start. Who do you got in this one?
I got Iowa State on the cover, but I got Oklahoma winning in a close game. I think 14 is too much. I know it's one of the lower Oklahoma lines we've seen this year, but I think Iowa State is good enough to keep it close.
This is primetime game, though. We've seen the Cyclones might come out flat.
They might. I think it's possible. However, I think after that homecoming loss, they're going to come out, and after the bye here with a little fire underneath them, and at least keep it close, and it should be a good competitive game.
Well, Jared, I don't know. I think that was a great pick. I'm also going to go with Iowa State. 14 points is a brutal line. I think the Cyclones can cover that. I think if we play to our best capability, we could hang with Oklahoma for sure, especially with the weaknesses that we learned about them from Kansas State. And given Matt Campbell's history in Norman, until he proves differently from what I've seen, I'm going to go with Iowa State to cover in this one. It's going to be a close game. Just because I'm the InCyders host, I'm going to pick the Cyclones in it, though, anyways. 2-0 in 3 years in Norman. We'll see if it happens, folks. Hopefully things get weird. Jared, who do you have? Or, excuse me, John.
Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I was having Kyle Kemp flashbacks when I initially saw they were going to Oklahoma.
As you should.
But then something else came up, and I remembered Kyler Murray torching our defense. And then I said, oh, wait, Jalen Hurts is their quarterback. Give me the Sooners.
Boo. Regardless, probably going to be a lot of offense in this game, hopefully. We'd love to see the Iowa State defense played like they did 2 years ago. That's all we have for you on this edition of Cyclone InCyders. Volleyball, football, women's basketball, men's basketball. It's all in full swing at the same time. Lots of action to watch. Make sure to get out and cheer on your Iowa State Cyclones. For John, Jared, I'm your host, Ben Olson. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Cyclones.
Hurts for high.